I like that we just asked for a like and subscribe, and we made it a point to say if you commented, we would respond back to you. We'd have a really good engagement, and we hope that you guys engage with some kind of lineup construction and reasons you like this show, and that's exactly what we got at the end of the last show. So it was really perfect. We did just enough promotion where you guys knew it was possible, and it helped us out, but we didn't have to over promote it or feel like kind of grimy afterwards. And that's really what we got a couple good comments about it, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're just trying to transparently tell you how three smart people build lineups, not trying to be the smartest in the room either, just doing what we think are smart things, and then coming back on Tuesday and reviewing it. And sometimes those reviews are going to be bad, and it's not that we want the snowflakes. Obviously, I want to win, but I do think there is value to making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. I'm not the same lineup builder I was when I first started DraftKings 6 years ago, and I don't think any of you guys are as well. And I enjoyed that process. So I'm glad that people kind of have really leaned into the process of our show and really kind of almost vibed out with us in that way, where it's like, oh, when these guys laugh, they're also trying to be educational. But we're not trying to be so educational that we're trying to outsmart the viewer. I've really enjoyed that a lot. So, Gov, when you looked at these lineups or just lineups in general, I'm sure you saw review shows. Was there anything that really stuck out to you? Because the Cooper Cup thing to me is what stuck out immediately. That people wanted to flag plant something, and to me that's just a void. That's just a voided check. That's almost a hey, if this would have happened, then maybe this didn't happen, but it did happen, so we just have to swallow it. To me, that's how I read it.
Well, I mean, Cooper Cup getting hurt, first off, what the hell with all the injuries week 2? Good God. I don't understand. Is everyone playing really that much beyond what they used to that bodies can't take it 2 weeks into the season? I don't know what that is. It's just weird to me. But getting beyond that, it's I understand Cooper Cup was pretty highly owned, almost as high owned as Mason was.
Mm-hmm.
Mason was the sheer chalk, and honestly, eating Mason chalk didn't really hurt. What actually was optimal was playing Mason chalk and the one pivot in the same price range off of Mason chalk, which was Dobbins. That was probably the best running back play you could have made.
But Dobbins,
outside of having Kamara, which when a dude just breaks a slate with 40 plus points, that's crazy.
Yeah,
and I'll pull it up now so people can see the higher scores. So you can see it.
I mean, my thing is, a lot of these guys on this list, I would not have played.
I didn't play Kamara, but I was also not playing that New Orleans-Dallas game, which probably was wrong. That was a good game to have a piece of. Excuse me.
Kamara's the only guy there. Me and Logan played him in a, off the show lineup. I didn't get him in any of mine because I was just going cheap running back, which I highly regret. But I would have never played Marvin Harrison Jr. at that price. I would have never played. Who were the other guys?
But even Harrison, I could see that game happening for Harrison.
The two rookies had show-out games with Neighbors and Harrison.
Yeah, was never going to play them.
Harrison did it with just 8 targets, 4 catches. That's pretty good. That's very efficient. Whereas Neighbors had 18 targets.
Just a PPR monster. I mean,
yeah.
But I would have never played Metcalf. I've been saying it, I think at least in the Discord server for the past week. Christian Gonzalez has not let a single receiver kill him in his career yet. Patriots didn't have him on there all the time, but DK was killing every one of the corners. Jackson Jigga killed every one of the Patriots corners. Was not expecting that as a fan. So most of the top guys I just wouldn't have played, so there's no world I would have been able to win. Which I'm fine with.
I like that, Donnie, that you own up the expectation. You say it happened. DK is talented enough for it to happen, but you didn't expect it. I think that's a very honest, transparent way to look at it. And honestly, I think me and Gov spent a lot of time at Saturday night, late Saturday night, discussing DFS with a lot of smart people. And it always comes back to the probability of something. And I was making the point that there's a lot of things that can happen in week 2 that are outside of the realm of realistic or fantasy, or like maybe if something crazy happens, like week 1, what did we see? Tyreek Hill get arrested. Like maybe that goes very bad in week 1 or week 2 for someone else, and like we have to pivot. But that's expected. Like sometimes you're going to have to pivot. Sometimes there's an injury that's unfortunate. Maybe you had Tua in the showdown lineups. Those things, even though we can't call them, you should almost plan for them. And that's why we talk about bankroll management all the time.
We even were talking about, especially due to a comment, a Giants receiver this week.
Yeah.
Just not the right one.
Me and Gov were joking about it. I think I don't know. At this point, I feel like we're live all the time, so all of our takes should just be recorded, but they might not have been. But we knew this matchup was a prime one. And we knew Dable literally said for the Giants, I have a play sheet for the Giants wide receivers, and I have a neighbor's play sheet. So we knew it was possible, and we knew the matchup, but I don't like Daniel Jones. And I'll be honest, at this point in my DFS career, I will not normally play something I believe that strongly for that kind of outcome unless I stack it. And there's just no way I'm going to stack Daniel Jones and Neighbors. So if it happens again this season, you can almost guarantee I won't be on it. And I'm okay with that. That's in my bankroll. That's within my mindset. Not that I'm so stubborn that I won't play it, because there are times where you have to adjust your priors, or you have to, with new information, you have to make new decisions.
I will give it on Nico Collins. He clearly seems to be the number one there.
Yep, that was.
I did not
expect.
In
the Sunday night showdown was like, but like the scoring is definitely down, because like Kamara broke the slate, but you see, there's only 5 guys in the entire all 16 games that scored over 30 fantasy points.
And see, that's, you guys can be my testimony here. I wanted to have these larger discussions so that we can take this information for week 3, because we could look at a lineup review and we can do that and have this conversation at the same time to say it is true that scoring is down for quarterbacks.
It's not just down in DFS. It is significantly down in the NFL. NFL this season,
play is down, like the whole situation.
The first 2 weeks, I think scoring's almost down 50% from last year. Just NFL points in general.
Yeah.
So
average plays per game is down like 3 or 4 plays per game.
It's a significant. We are back to the running back era. I think everyone went so small. I think you just need a running back that's going to bruise your way through. And we are in the middle of that transition where it's not going to be as much of a passing league again.
Maybe it changes back. Maybe it flips back by.
It flips flops every so often, but I do think this year will be a run heavy year.
But that's what I'm saying, is that's the value of this show, is if it happens, you guys are watching this in real time. You guys are watching our lineup, builder shows. We will adjust. My takes in week 1 are going to change from my weeks, my takes in week 10. With incentive later weeks and like week 17, you play differently than you do in week 2. It's just how it is. But if you don't at least take the information now and try to make something out of it, you will lose. Like if you're waiting for like, oh, projections will save me, or this will save me, or don't worry, CeeDee Lamb's a good pick. I picked him in best ball, so he's got to work out. Like that stuff is not smart. That's the kind of stuff that will lose you money when you are so stubborn to your information that you just won't change. Like me and Donnie, we mentioned on FanDuel, we built the show on FanDuel because we want to show different diversities and different platforms some love sometimes. We lost with a Kamara lineup. He had 46 points. He was 3% owned. He was a great play. But I think it was either Donnie or Gov, we were having a discussion just last week. You could play Tyreek Hill. You could say Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver on this slate, and you could still lose if you don't pair it with enough good stuff. And we just proved that with our FanDuel lineup, with the Kamara lineup. Now, I would say that's a good process play, and I was able to overcome that process mistake of playing Kamara incorrectly by getting enough stuff right in the sportsbook and other lineups that I actually made a small bit of profit this week. And that's why I always say diversify your portfolio. Don't go in playing only one lineup or only playing this one staunch version of a lineup and being like, oh, this got to happen because I want to play it. That's just not a good, smart move. Any takeaways for you guys? I mean, we can go back to the lineup review. You can talk about things more granularly, but those were just some things that were burning on my chest.
I do want to talk some Philadelphia, just because I think they're very close to needing to hit that panic button. I know it's early in the season, but to lose, I mean, now you're 2-9 in your last 11. But they're losing the same way this year as they lost last year. Now, that is an awful recipe, and Sirianni was already allegedly on the hot seat. If that continues, it's not going to be good for them.
I don't want to feel like I'm being a dead horse. So I'll let Gov go, but I've already raised the panic flag on Sirianni. I always thought he was on a hot seat. That's why in the offseason I was lower on the Eagles than most. I don't like the way they're structured.
I mean, Philly's going to be a strong team this year. Like I think
they're going to just win games on talent.
This is just a little bump in the road. I agree. They're going to win games on talent, and they're probably not as good as the best teams in the league. Like they're probably not as good as San Francisco.
But they have the
probably
talent.
Not as good as Detroit, but they can totally win any game they're in. Sorry. Oh God. Ugh. It's just like the problem is I don't trust Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is only slightly better than Lamar Jackson to me. Like I think he's the one making I don't think it's Sirianni. I think it's Jalen Hurts making the wrong decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it is, but I mean, you got to think about it this way. They've been in this situation before. They were easily able to cut ties with Carson Wentz, and they just decided to go that route. And then eventually Doug Peterson. We've already gone through this with Philadelphia. You have to make the tough decision eventually. Is it going to be Hurts, which you already paid him, so it can't be Hurts? Now you're down to Sirianni. You got to make it Sirianni if it doesn't work. And where it keeps happening and you keep losing the same way and your secondary still is subpar, even though I know you have talent, Slade's very good. You got Mitchell, who, I mean, he's making plays a lot as a rookie, though I don't think a rookie should be your number 2 corner to start. But, you know, that's a different
if you had a bad secondary before, you're probably going to have a rookie starting the next year.
That's true.
Something to make your defense
but
better.
As a Super Bowl contender, it's tough. I mean, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he can't stay healthy, but he's talented, and they got a pass rush. So I know you got the talent on defense to have at least a formidable defense, and they don't show up. So
on paper,
what's going on? Yeah. What's going on with that defense is what really needs to be figured out.
They have not allocated their defensive money very well at all. Their free agent additions haven't paid off. Literally, they haven't paid off. They paid defensive ends to come in and be pieces and contribute and get pressure. And this is not a shot at the Eagles either, because the Falcons couldn't generate pressure. I think that was the worst Monday Night Football game in terms of pressure I have seen in the last decade. There was just no pressure. Both quarterbacks had all day, and Kirk Cousins coming off a major injury in the key moment of the game. You knew they were passing most of that drive with a minute and 15 seconds, and they still couldn't generate pressure. So you're basically, the Eagles knew that the Falcons had to throw their fastball, and they still couldn't get strikes. They still couldn't get home. That's when you have a real problem.
And
then you flip the other side, and Jalen Hurts can't, with crunch time, get it down the field in field goal range. He's throwing the interception.
I do want to point out, too, because it's not just about sacks when we're talking about this either. You can have a low sack game and be fine. The Patriots, for most of their time in the 2010s, did not get sacks much. They didn't have a dominant pass rusher, but they at least made you uncomfortable. You got to do something.
I do think people are going to overreact to the quarterback scoring, but it's not just quarterbacks. I mean, tight ends are at all-time low too for points, but those are mostly the high-end tight ends. The Travis Kelce's, the Mark Andrews, but some of that's Mark Andrews is still a good tight end, but they got Likely. They have other weapons around him, and you got to realize that real football is going to trump fantasy football, and sometimes coaches don't care if you have Mark Andrews in the second or third round and you have him stacked with Lamar Jackson. They just want to win games, and if they can give you multiple looks and unique looks and run 2 tight end sets, they're going to do it. The Raiders have done that very well, Brock Bowers is paying off because of it. So like, it's funny how we pick and choose our fantasy narrative sometimes of what we're happy about and what we're disappointed with.
I think, most teams, to me, at least this year, this is the first time there's this many teams without an identity, whether it's because of injuries and they have to adjust. But a lot of teams right now just don't have an identity, and I don't know what they want to be or want to do. I mean, it seems like the Lions want to pass it a bunch, and they should just be the run-heavy team. But they're passing it a lot with Goff, who's struggling. The Eagles, again, you have no idea what the Eagles' identity is. That was an issue last year. That's still an issue.
Well, I'll just make this Lions point real quick, and we can kick it over to a lineup, or we can get Gus' perspective. But the Bucs lost their best defensive tackle, probably the best nose tackle in football, Vaitai, and they still couldn't. They still would not run the ball. It was very weird. And then they finally did at the end of the game when they needed the pass because of time restraints. So it was just a weird game. Sometimes that happens.
Dan Campbell did take blame. Like, he did not coach that game well. There was poor time management at the half.
Right.
There was reasons Detroit lost that game, not due to them being a worse team than Tampa.
That's a very good point. That's kind of the point I was going to circle back to. Is you got to appreciate the leadership of these mistakes, and that's what we try to do with these lineups too. Like, if we looked at this lineup and we said, was there any bad mistakes that we made in this lineup? I don't really think so. It's just Mike Evans didn't have the projected game that we were hoping and wanting from him.
Godwin just got it.
I was about to say, it was the Godwin game, and Godwin actually came in, I think, a little. I'd have to find a lineup.
It's about the same.
If the top lineup had him, but I think Godwin was right about the same or a little lower ownership.
It was right around the same.
He's got to be near the top here. Let me see if I can find him. Chris Godwin.
There it is.
First click.
26.
No, see, he was even much chalkier. So we went with a more expensive, less chalky play, and Mike Evans can always go off. He had just done it the week before. Maybe we were chasing, but
I mean,
because Godwin's the slot guy, and he did seem to be the better play. That's why he was higher owned. Sometimes the high owned is because the guy is a really good play. You don't just always have to pay. When a guy's chalky just because of workload or perceived role, that can be a trap. But when a guy actually produces, like Mason or Godwin, it's no, this is the matchup. This is what they're gonna do. This is this is how either it's going to happen this way or it's not going to happen at all, kind of thing. It's okay, that can be some good chalk. So maybe we should have had a little more Godwin instead of maybe we should have gone Godwin instead of Evans, but that could be our only mistake because we could have easily ate more chalk in our lineup.
Let me look.
We had plenty of low owned stuff in our lineup. Worthy's low owned. We had a less than 1% tight end. We could have easily ate the 26% on Godwin with the rest of our lineup and been perfectly fine. Speaking
of easy, though, I'll make that counterpoint. So Godwin was $6,000. Mike Evans was $7,500. Right? That's about $1,500 difference.
Yeah, we could have done that and gotten off of Sanders or Issa.
Let's say we get off of Worthy, right? And we find the money. We go down. We pay down.
Use that $1,500 Rice or something. Same game stack, but you play the more expensive receiver.
Even worse, we play Cooper Kupp. We're hey, we can eat the chalk. We play Cooper Kupp. He would have outscored Worthy. Does that mean he's a good play? No, he only played a quarter. Now, he smashed in that quarter, and then he got hurt. That's where you can get yourself into trouble if you just point chase or you just look at the outcome of a game and be well, Kupp, would have made more sense. He scored more points than Worthy. No, in this lineup, I feel we needed Worthy's upside. It just didn't happen in this game. So, of course, we have to eat the snowflake in this lineup for this game, for this outcome. But that doesn't mean that this is a bad play.
Yeah, and I will say, too, about that. Evans, I mean, we could say maybe it was a bad play, but he can go off any given Sunday. And I don't perceive it as chasing points because it was more so chasing the game. And that game I thought would be a lot higher scoring than it was. And it did have two receivers go off, Amon-Ra and Godwin. But we spoke about it last week. Baker just not spread the ball well. Week 1, he spread the ball like crazy. That was very uncharacteristic. He only had 4 players catch a football from him week 2. That's what you need to pay attention to Tampa Bay. He just locks in on 2-3 guys, and if you're one of his guys that day, you're gonna play well.
Yeah, I appreciate Sia, by the way, subscribing to the channel. Obviously, giving major love. Works with CBS Sports. Huge into DFS himself. Does a first look lineup, and that's really what I like to do with this kind of review. Is like, how can we use the information from our reviews to apply for the next week? So, like, and do my own, kind of recap of this week. I heard this interesting point, and it went like this. If this slate went 10 times, like if we ran the simulation on this slate 10 times, how often do you think we miss out on the money? I don't think this is a bad lineup to that point, Donnie. We just didn't get the outcomes we needed.
And we got really lucky on Yoshi. Yoshi had 2 catches for 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Only 7 yards.
And I don't think it was luck. Like week 1, he got all this workload. It just didn't pay off.
That's a good point.
Like 2 touchdowns.
Maybe it was jitters, maybe that. But like now he's like had the same workload. He just got the scores. Like he could have easily done that week 1. He had more targets week 1. He ran just as many routes. But like maybe that's just because like
they didn't score.
Burrow has said Cincinnati is built to beat Kansas City, so it's a better matchup. Who knows? But like it definitely worked. He was still able to be used.
Maybe we say that. Maybe we say that touchdowns are lucky, or that's the luck variant of what we're discussing here. But even if that's the case, he had red zone attempts last week, to your point, Gov, and he didn't cash in. He got 5 points. Sometimes with these low guys, these low ownership, jam ins, you have to eat the 6 points. You have to eat the 7 points. Last year, I did a ton on Jamison Williams. I was playing for that high upside smash. It happened a few times last year. Now it's happening more consistently, and his price is going up, and people expect consistency out of him now. So now we get to see if Jamison can actually keep that consistency, and that's what happens in DFS. You're right about a play, but he doesn't stay there. Kamara is going to get to the point where he's like priced like CMC, and people are going to laugh and say, well, he's not CMC. Well, he was a good play in week 1 and 2. You can't take that away from him.
He was actually CMC before there was CMC.
Right.
Well, exactly. But that's my point. It's like we have to consider price with the outcome of what we expect. Like CMC, Kamara, it doesn't matter. Those guys, when they perform, their price is going to go up. And then how do you react after that? What comes after that? Can you make smart decisions after that? Joe Burrow is a perfect example. Double J brings it up in the comments. After week 1, people were making excuses. They were making that hand injury, jokes, memes were going on. Now he's able to, orchestrate that offense against the Chiefs. They looked like they had some firepower. Who knows what they'll look like when they have Higgins back? I mean, so it's funny how 1 week can change people's perspective so easily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's just one other guy I want to bring up. I know Gov will hate it because I have to say his name, but Pop Douglas was open a lot last week. I don't think he got a single target last week. I only watched.
Well, I mean, he didn't need to be open. Hunter Henry was also open, and Jacoby said throw it to Hunter Henry out every fucking play.
Pretty much. I mean, if it wasn't Ramondre and Henry, it was no one. But I can tell you right now, Pop Douglas was open, and last year he was one of the top receivers in yards per catch. So I guess percent just doesn't like him, but that will be something I'll be eyeing at when I think it's a when May comes to play. Hopefully this year.
Can you bring up our value lineup, Logan?
Yeah,
I can. I think that's why.
Like you can switch over to DK Live while you find it. So
I believe it was this one, wasn't it? Or was this one of mine?
Yes, this is it.
Because I also played a Patrick Mahomes version of this in my personal as well.
I'm pretty sure this is it.
Yeah. This is it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I think we pretty much did well. It's just we didn't get the outcomes that we obviously needed to cash, but that doesn't mean this lineup is bad. Travis Kelce just missed the touchdown.
It was another one where it's like we grabbed Mike Evans again.
Mhm.
Like that's another reason why I wish we would have gotten Godwin in one. Like we
Godwin in
basically
one.
just all in on a 50-50
the
bet.
mistake.
That's
There was a
great point.
50-50 bet between Godwin and Evans that we were making, and we all in on one side instead of hedging. Like if we're gonna do that, like we probably should have had Godwin.
Which that's what I did in personal. I had it 50-50, but
split the difference, right? Say that again. That was such a great point. You know, I mean, when we like an offense, we're obviously like the Tampa Bay offense. We played Baker in a stack. We played 2 lineups with Mike Evans. If we like that many points, if we like the bringbacks with St. Brown and the Lions, we should have probably just had more variance. I say it all the time, you know, diversify your portfolio, and then I don't do it. So I own that one. That was a mistake.
Well, and we knew we had 2 chalky guys with Mason and Cup, but the logic of it was
pretty much everywhere else. I'm a little surprised Charbonnet was so low. Like, I thought he would come in chalkier, but I think a lot of the weird, like there was a lot of weird running back. Like Mason took up 50%, so like even Kyron was only like 15 when I figured he'd be 20. Like I feel like there was one other chalky running back I'm forgetting about. But then, like, there was a lot of 15. Like, people were playing Kyron, people were playing Dobbins, people were playing Connor, people were playing Pacheco. Like, all those guys came in a little chalkier than I thought, but, like, no one other than Mason was real chalk.
And if I'm not wrong, we basically did the double tight end to get off the chalk that we had, correct? That was one of the theories I had when we were picking it.
Yeah, that definitely got us off. Like that helped to account for that.
You know,
we also have
Kelsey's
a lot
not a
of
bad idea.
plays. Like we have surprised, like other than our 2 chalky pieces, and then Evans, who wasn't even the chalky part of that Tampa offense.
Right.
Everyone's sub 10%. So like we got very different with this lineup. But that was like the beginning, like the goal in the beginning. We were trying to pick all of the good low-owned plays.
Yeah.
Or not low-owned, but like low, like high-value, low-salary plays.
Right.
And we upgraded, like we got to that and then decided to upgrade the stack to a Mahomes and Kelce.
Well, at this point, I think I'm going to be doing the Mahomes, Kelce, at least one of them per week, just because until they smash, I want to be there when they smash. They're going to do it.
I don't know if I'm going to chase Mahomes. Like I have Mahomes in some
maybe not Mahomes as much, but definitely Kelce for me. Well, Kelsey's going to be a good play eventually.
I actually have a good Mahomes discussion after this week. Basically, he has been consistently getting about 15 to 14 points almost every week, but he never gets upwards of 20. And the idea is that he is so high owned for that safety, for that median outcome, that we don't ever see the spike. I don't think he's been over 20 in like a year and a half. Outside of playoff games, obviously, where the slates are much different. And then you value that he's probably not the rusher he used to be. There's not very many quarterbacks that don't rush. And so maybe at this point you just play a cheaper guy who can run, like a Fields, even though we know Mahomes is so much better than Fields in real football. But in fantasy, that rushing upside, like a Daniels has smashed, even though he's a rookie, just because the price and then the rushing upside is just too much to overcome because touchdowns are down. It does seem like quarterbacks are very efficient in between moving the ball, and then the red zone, they're not getting the touchdowns, which just overweights the rushing quarterback so much. Do you see that being a trend that continues, or like how do you play that? Because I do kind of agree with Donnie, just keep playing the talent until it smashes, but maybe the talent is finding the dual, threat quarterback and just playing whatever the cheapest guy is.
Well, I mean, I feel like the offenses in the NFL are going to get better as the weeks go on. Like, I think this is the show of like you only did 3 preseason games, and there were a lot of teams that didn't even play their guys in preseason. So it's like not only did you get rid of a preseason game, but a lot of teams just didn't use the preseason to do anything anymore. And so I think you're seeing that rust when you're coming into all of these games here. I don't know. The injuries are definitely hurting too. Like when a team gets injured and now you have to change on the fly, early in the season when no one has any rhythm together. It's like it's one thing like when everyone's gelling and then one guy goes, well, it's like what to do. Can you just step up and do these couple of things that he was doing and we can keep going, kind of stuff. Like,
and maybe
you don't
you're
even
wrong.
have a rhythm for someone to step in and keep the flow.
Yeah. Maybe that take is wrong, Gov, and someone would disagree with you, but there is some validity to that take because you said that, preseason you think is affecting the injuries and the rust. Look no further than the Rams. You can disagree with the take, and maybe you could pull up an example where Gov is wrong here, but he's got the prime example where he's right so far. Because look at Puka Nacua, look at Cup. McVay doesn't run starters at all in the preseason. Now, that's how I would personally coach. I believe in that theory because I think that theory pans out more than it doesn't. But to Gov's point, it's not.
Like, I was going to make a specific point about the Rams, but like, there's a lot more teams other than the Rams that like they base like a lot of these veteran teams. Like, I wouldn't even call them veteran teams. Like, there's no reason. Hold on, I have to get an example pulled up. But like, yes, the Rams are an example, but like
the Rams are.
I don't think it's just the Rams. All right.
Yeah, right. That's a good point too, because we're hearing a lot of that. We're hearing a lot of the popular teams or like the easy low hanging fruit. It's just easy to pick on McVay because we know he does it to the extreme. He doesn't play any starters, so then people are picking on that low hanging fruit. Donnie, anything stick out to you about this lineup? Because one thing sticks out to me that I want to highlight, but I want to make sure we get all your points across first.
Well, I just want to put on the Mahomes. I looked at it. It's 4 times he scored over 20 since last year.
4 times?
And one of them was on which this only includes regular season. One of them was a Thursday slate. So only 3 times on the Sunday slate have we seen him score over 20 in the last year.
Right, but the point was, Donnie, that sometimes you need that medium outcome, in your quarterback.
Right.
Like, if you get that medium outcome and he doesn't fail that week and you stack him correctly, you still win. And it goes back to that Tyreek Hill point that we made in week 1. If I told you Tyreek Hill was going to smash, you'd be like, cool, that's great, I'll plug him in. But how else do you build with Tyreek Hill? You can't just say like, oh, I got one smash in my lineup, I'm gonna cash now, I'm gonna win all the money. That's not how it works.
When I look at this, I don't think there's a single process mistake that we made outside of we had Evans in 2 and no Godwin. That's the only process mistake I see.
Yeah, I think that's right. But think about that's the point I'm trying to drive at. One mistake can change a whole lineup.
Well, I don't think this hits the line. Either of them hit the line if we make that change, but I'm not sure where the line was. So,
I mean, in the one lineup, I think we might have played Godwin, and maybe we get there. But I do think we would have probably tried to, find our way up the cup, and maybe that would have been a mistake in another way. And so, like, you never know what the butterfly effect could do. We did get some things right. I still argue that paying down for tight ends is very valuable. Now, I did pay up sort of when I do see a volume spike. Like I did play a lot of Brock Bowers in my personal lineups, just because I whenever I see a tight end get that many targets for a rookie, I know there's something special. I want to highlight quickly because I think people can use it for week 3. I don't know if this continues. I don't know if it's a trend, but it's definitely happening because I've been seeing it. The Raiders are using their quick passing game as their running game. They've been throwing Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers like a ton of screen passes and just like setting up a wall and letting them catch the ball and run more than any other team so far.
Yeah, I mean, Zamir and Rachaad White have both been awful this year. I mean, they are just they're not efficient rushers. And that was an issue last year for Rachaad White as well, but they're just not being efficient.
And you're right. Maybe that's a small sample size, and they'll start smashing because they do.
Well, I think Rachaad White isn't a sample size. I think that's just who Rachaad White is. He was a volume monster last year. He had 2nd in carries and 13th in yards. That's not good.
Yeah. Gov, anything about this lineup that stuck out to you?
Not particularly. Like I was hesitant of stacking Mahomes and Kelsey.
You were.
I would have liked to have gone a different way, but otherwise, like, I think really, like,
And
Mike
Kelsey,
Evans not panning out and Kupp getting hurt is basically what killed this lineup. Because like we might have been able to get away with the Mahomes stack not going well if we would have gotten, because like Kelsey didn't do good, Worthy didn't do good. So if you did Mahomes and you didn't have Rashee with him, then it didn't do anything for you. Like you needed to have, and like we needed Godwin over Evans, and Rashee was the only one that got to any kind of a number you could play.
right?
I did play a lot of Rashee Rice. I still lost with the Rashee Rice. See, none of my lineups cashed this week, but they were all teetering on the cash line.
None of mine did either.
Kind of week it was.
Yeah, well, none of mine did either, and I was like, I had a lot of the decent plays and ideas, and then you just had the Marvin Harrison come up in the DK. I was not going to be upset.
Yeah, I was lucky. Like I didn't have Marvin Harrison, but like my Baker stack that did have Godwin did eventually get it was Rice who was my late hammer, and that did eventually backdoor me into cash in one.
That backdoored you. So the opposite.
Can you go back to the all tab?
Yeah, I got you.
Or yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Out of these guys, I only had, I only played Godwin out of the top guys here. So I mean, I just never had a shot. I missed out on.
I wasn't doing a Kyler stack. It made sense though. Like when I had lineups that didn't do well or were kind of low in the morning, I should have switched my stuff to the low-owned Arizona and such. Although I was already playing Kansas City, and none of the Kansas City guys came in very highly owned either. Like our Mahomes stack was low owned. Worthy was low owned. Like I think the only one that pulled any kind of ownership was Pacheco. And that's another guy who got hurt or else probably would have paid off handily.
And maybe that's
like this was a very unlucky week with injuries, I think, for us.
It was.
But there was also oversights. Like I personally have a bias against those top rookies, but of course they're going to have a game here or there, at least. So Neighbors was going to have a game. Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to have a game. Like Odunze will it depends. Chicago might not be that great. But like there are rookie wide receivers that will end up like having a good game.
And if you look at these guys, a lot of these guys are people that we play Adams a lot throughout the year.
Yeah.
But a lot of the guys here, I get what you're saying. It's just personal bias. I wouldn't play most of them for whatever reason. I think
this was a week where like my personal bias hurt all my lineups.
Yes, that's exactly where I was at too.
That's a process. Like that's the real process mistake was like too much personal bias, which weeks 1 and 2 is the weeks to lean into what you think is right because we don't really know everything yet. We don't have enough like numbers and stats for these teams for the year to sort of be able to project where they're going. So it is the time of year to like capitalize on what you think is going on. We were just not on it this week.
I call these first 4 weeks like the 10-man weeks. They're the week where the computer's behind. You know, the machine is behind. So these are like where you knowing ball, you focusing on preseason, you doing best ball research. All that stuff really benefits you the first 4 weeks. When the projections start to come, that's when you can almost reverse engineer it because there's still some like hand building, some real human elements that you can use. But that's where you got to almost leverage the machine. And we're not there yet, but we're starting to get there where the machine's going to start spitting out these good projections. Now we got to figure out what we believe and what we don't. For example, Shaheed. Now, I will not play Shaheed next week. He could go out and smash, but I just feel like his ownership and the way he did it and the sex appeal and like the fun nature and the big bombs and all that plays into his ownership to the point where I don't want to play it because people are going to see so many more highlights of his plays. Like where I might play a Kamara over him because Kamara got there with just like grinded out sweat, workload kind of production. And the highlights aren't going to show that. But you can easily show the majority of how Shaheed got his points by one play. And so people see that enough times, the ownership's going to spike on him. And if that's how he scores most of his points, that's what scares me. Where like a Brock Bowers isn't Gov's type of guy, but he got there on 9 targets as a tight end. Where that position, you need the volume. Like volume is king, especially at tight end. And if he's going to get that workload, I'll die on the hill where he gets 5 points or he gets 2 points. You know, Kobe Parkinson got 2 points this week. I cannot tell anyone he was a bad play. I don't think we played him in a single lineup.
We did.
And that's just to say, I don't think he's a bad play.
I didn't realize Strange had that many points.
James and Strange.
Yeah, no, and
When
like
Ingram was out.
now that I think about it, we had where I see DK Metcalf. He was what 59. What?
Yeah, he's kind of like, to be fair, he shouldn't be that cheap.
Yeah,
Any
other week I would have played it. The fact that he played New England is what
you had a bias.
Yeah,
this was the week where our biases just sort of killed our lives. 100%.
And I stand by that. There was no world where I ever would have touched it because I've seen how good they've been defending number one receivers over the past year. And it really came back to bite me. And like the Jackson Smith and Jigba doesn't shock me at all. He had a very good week. I know he's not up here at the top guys, but I think he still finished with over 20.
He had 26 points because we have him in a best ball league.
Yeah,
I hate that, but
yeah, 26. I mean, that's the one guy where it's like that's how the Patriots play defense. They usually choose one guy to kill you, and it wasn't going to be DK. They were going to choose to let them kill. So Smith and Jigba actually was the one that made sense because it was either going to be Lockett if he even played. I don't even know if he did anything, or Smith and Jigba. So that's the thing. Like, I'm fine with admitting that I was the 16 targets. Like, they did not guard him. There was a third corner on Smith and Jigba every single time. They never changed that, which is how the Patriots have always coached defense.
Okay, but that's the thing. That's a perfect example. DK and Shaheed. I think Shaheed got there on bomb targets. And I don't know, like, I still think Chris Olave is the most talented wide receiver with the Saints, where I think DK is by far the most talented, and he's getting the targets, and his price only went up by like $500 in week 3. So I will 100% go back to DK, where the Chris Olave is just so boomer bust, and we have him in a best ball. So, like, don't act like I'm not a Shaheed guy. I definitely want him to keep hitting home runs because we benefit from it. I just think that's just one of the things with the ownership. Just it's going to push me off of him. You know, we also have Devontae Johnson in a lineup with the Carolina Panthers, and the Andy Dalton news I think is going to be very beneficial to him.
Deontay Johnson.
Deontay Johnson. Sorry, I've been speaking too much today. But that's one of the things where I think Andy Dalton is actually going to benefit him, but I don't know that. But it's at a point when week 3 where Andy Dalton's cheap enough that I think you could make that case. But if you had to make that case and he was as much as Patrick Mahomes, you would view that differently. And I don't think that gets weighted into our decisions enough. So Gov's right. There's a bias, but there's also a price to consider with that bias. And when that price is low enough, you can take more chances. When that price is higher, you can't. If that makes sense. Or you shouldn't, I should say.
Maybe not. It's not ideal. I wouldn't say you can't because there's probably nothing you can't do. It's just how plus EV is it to do it.
Well, I've seen a lot of people victory lapping like the Cooper Cup stuff, or even like the Puka stuff, so we can take it out of week 2 if you want. Like, oh well, see, you guys shouldn't have taken Puka in the first round of best ball. Like he's already hurt, or Cooper Cup. It's like, yeah, those are high leverage spots, and if you didn't draft them, then there is some like happiness there. There is a narrative to be like, well, I'm glad I avoided that bullet. But to say they were bad plays, I can't go there. Cooper had 7 points in like 1 quarter. He was on pace to smash.
Puka had 9 points, I think, in the first half of his game as well. Like Puka was, like it was working, but.
To that point, Don, you have Yoshi in a best ball team. Are you victory lapping Yoshi? Because
I don't know if I'm honestly not sure if I have Yoshi. I know I drafted a lot of rookie receivers.
I believe you do, but that's my point.
I think I got one with Yoshi.
I think you do, but we're dealing with such a small sample size. Who knows what's going to?
But like Yoshi, I'm happy that Yoshi has had his 1 week, and another one I have that same team I have Whittingham, the Rams receiver. Like, I am benefiting a lot. Like the first first couple preseason injuries, training camp injuries, killed me in one of them. But now the regular season injuries are propping me back up.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll live with it.
And to your point, Gov, about the narratives killing you this week and just your biases, I also think you're very smart, and I wouldn't do the show with you if I didn't think so. I think eventually your information bias is also going to benefit you in such a positive way, or you coming on the show and giving people great process ideas, that eventually is going to come around. And that's what we're really betting against. We're betting in the long term that we make smarter decisions than the field. And so some weeks we're going to lose, but we're going to make more smart decisions than bad decisions.
I think there is times when you need to concede your bias. I have already conceded one bias this year. Nico Collins is one of the guys. He's deserves the price range he's at. He deserves to be the pick and best ball where he's at. But that's the only one I'm really willing to concede. I wasn't going to play any of those rookie receivers because I didn't like their price. And specifically with Neighbors, I didn't like his offense.
See, I faded every rookie receiver I couldn't get until after like round 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Like I have no Dunze, I have no Neighbors, I have no Marvin Harrison.
And I'll live with
Marvin Harrison's probably going to bite me, but I still don't think he should have been a first, second round pick. I still think it'll end up where it's like, well, he probably should have gone in the third round.
Right. He'll finish at a wide receiver like 17 or whatever, which is fine.
Yeah.
Here's another process point that I want to make. We lost money on this. Totally transparent. I could show you the receipts. We lost money on it. It was our best bet. It was the Colts against the backup quarterback in Malik Willis. I still argue that Malik Willis is the worst starting quarterback in terms of
100%.
He is, but it doesn't matter when you just run 9 different guys and run the ball the entire time.
Right.
You don't have a quarterback. You didn't use a quarterback. You ran You might as well have been running the wishbone.
I don't even think that Malik Willis had. Oh, okay. He just surpassed 100 yards at the end, but he literally did nothing of like fantasy.
How many pass attempts did he have?
I think he had. I'll double check the number for you, but I think it was literally 12.
So it doesn't even record as like a passer rating pass attempts. Like he might as well have been a punter throwing the ball on every punt.
It was 12 completions, 14 attempts.
Still, you got to like if you don't have at least 20 attempts, I can't even calculate a passer rating for you. Like I can't call you a passer. Like you
right.
They might as well have run the wishbone. No, seriously.
And
so, I don't know like how Indy loses to that is just
I 100% inexcusable. It's so inexcusable that happened. Well, Anthony Richardson.
I get you went on the road into Green Bay. It's going to be a tough place to play, but like you played Navy in the wishbone. What the fuck?
To point out, they didn't even trust Richardson, or they didn't even trust Malik Willis to really run the ball. They only gave Willis 6 rush attempts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
to be fair, they spread it around. Like, if you look, they had like 8 different people have rush attempts.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about lack of trust in your quarterback.
And everyone.
That's so much lack of trust.
I mean, that's true. You do not trust him to be a quarterback, but you can trust him to run some kind of offense, and it won him a game.
That's the job of a backup. Yeah, that's his job as a backup.
Like, he did what he needed to do, but Green Bay is going to be very limited until Jordan Love's coming back.
Very. And somebody will expose them hardcore probably next week.
One of my favorite content creators in betting space. So I use a DFS for my DFS process, but he's a bettor. He runs a network called the Hammer Betting Network. Rob Prezzola. He basically said, sure, you have to give Willis the props of winning the game, but they won it the exact way that you would think they would win it, and the exact way you would have thought that the Green Bay the Colts would have been ready to stop. For some reason, they let Willis do exactly what we knew he could do and didn't stop that. And that's why we lost. So sure, it's a loss, but it's just an embarrassing way to lose when that's exactly the outcome you expected, and they just allowed Willis to do it. So it's only to prove that I think I was right on the odds of this happening. I think most teams would have taken away the rushing ability. And for some reason, the Colts didn't do it. But this is an example of where I'm wrong this week. but I'm going right back to it. I want the revenge narrative. I'm taking the Tennessee defense in almost every one of my lineups.
Tennessee defense is actually really good too.
Yeah,
I legit haven't even started looking at the slate this week.
The Tennessee's defense, I don't know what they're going to be priced at, but they have so much talent on that team. They can stop them.
They are just under 3K. But that was my point where something went wrong for us, but I'm doubling down on it.
Yep. And while we're talking about that, we did tell everyone, don't take the lock of the week, because the lock of the week is the reverse.
The lock of the week is the stone cold do not bet against whatever it is. Bet the opposite.
We are such a curse to teams.
We're like 0-17 in our last 18 or whatever.
We pick up at the end usually. The end of the season, we do usually even it out, but we always start out this bad. For the Colts to lose, I would literally 100 times out of 100, I would take this game. I would take the spread.
Yeah. And that's where you have to bet responsibly. You have to bet within your limits, because there's always the 1% chance of something bad happening, of the thing that you didn't see happen. And that's what you guys got to own. When we give out plays, we're doing it for entertainment purposes, but we also wanted to win. But when it doesn't, you can't blame us. You can't blame anyone but yourself for the outcome of it. We're giving you the probability of it happening. Like Donnie said, I would bet that every time. I lost money on that, and I would bet that again. And I actually have. I bet money that Tennessee beats the Packers. I will bet against Willis as long as he starts.
Yep. All right. Now to get to the rest of the thing, the spreads. I had Niners in -4.5. I mean, God, did they look bad? And then
I really kind of liked Minnesota this week, but I couldn't pull the trigger on using their defense in DFS or putting any bets on them.
And then the Commanders as well, putting me at 2-1-1. Logan had Falcons +6, Jags -3, putting him at 2-2. And Gov takes his first lead of the season with Jets -4 and Saints +6. He did win last year. That's why we had Kyle Juszczyk as our Super Bowl captain, which was a good captain pick, by the way. So maybe we just let Gov win because he's on a hot streak. That's what
I'm only going to go 2-0 so many times this year. All right, so many. All right. You having that tile, you already have the push. You're only a half a game back of me.
Yeah, the push usually does screw. The person with the most push usually does end up winning because it's such a big boost against a loss.
I actually have to make one more point, and then we can have all the fun. We were wrong about a lot, but sometimes you're so strongly right about something, or the odds are just so wrong, and you get lucky, or you believe something so strongly that you pay off. Because people are probably like, well, how did you make profit? Like you said at the beginning of the series, you made like $4 profit this week. It was because of that last drive with Kirk Cousins. Like the play I gave out with the Falcons, and the reasons why you guys can go back and watch that show. And a lot of people do, and I'm glad for it. A lot of people go back and watch our review show and see what we got right and wrong, and kind of go, live vicariously through us. And I appreciate that. I bet not a lot of money, obviously, but a lot of different ways the Falcons would succeed. It took that last drive, but that's when you believe something so strongly. Sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is, and it pays off. And that's why we made profit. So maybe we didn't make profit in our DFS lineups, but I was able to get profit for the next week, and that's important. It really is, because it carries into next week. So just want to point that out.
Yeah, and with these spread picks, I think we always finish off at least 500 everyone, and we get to it so late in the week. And I do think that's honestly, that says a lot. Because if we looked at it today, if we decide today to look at all the spread, we could probably have a lot better record.
God, I'm an overtime touchdown away from being 4-0.
I'm putting you guys on the spot, but I do think the Vikings number moved a lot. I bet them early in the week to cover 6.5. I believe the number closed at like -5 or +5.5 to 6. Now, at 6.5, I probably didn't need it, but I got it. That just shows you that it didn't matter. I bet it once.
That 1.5 points is the difference a lot of the times.
Yeah, it really is. So,
also, we didn't talk about the game much, and I know we're getting ready to get out of here, but the Commanders, they won a game with 7 field goals,
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, you'd imagine that offense is going to find something in the red zone, and they settled.
I mean,
they're
they're Washington. They actually don't have to. They could just suck.
They could just suck, and the Giants supremely suck. So I'm not saying they're a team that's probably going to make it, but usually a team that dynamic, they have a lot of dynamic weapons there. They should figure out their red zone offense eventually.
Okay, but let's say they don't.
I don't think they have any dynamic weapons. Like
they have Jaden Daniels, that's a dynamic weapon. You have McLaurin, you have Brian Robinson, who's able to make plays for you. I don't care if you don't like him. You have Austin Eckler. You have guys.
But here's my point.
A lot of not very explosive dudes. Like, I'll give you McLaurin, but like Robinson's just like a solid running back. He's not very explosive.
Right. That's enough.
Eckler has no more explosiveness anymore. And I will say this, I will always say this. If your quarterback is one of your weapons, then you don't have a quarterback, which is a big problem for your team.
That's a fine take to have. I'm not a huge Jaden Daniels guy either myself. But
it's funny how he's the one who's like not throwing touchdowns and not putting up very much offense, but he has rushing stats. So everyone's giving him the pass over the other rookies. But like he's kind of playing shittily too.
Yeah, Caleb Williams actually, I know he missed a lot of throws that were open, but he has so much control at the line. I've never seen a rookie come in week 2 of a season and already be able to make those kind of adjustments.
What adjustments? Any adjustments he's made has been garbage, and then he can't get the ball where it needs.
Well, the team's garbage. You can only do so much when you have no offensive line.
Okay, so that's the thing. If that's what it is, that just means the Bears are never going to be good. Like, I hate that downward spiral. It's like, is it the quarterback? No, it's the offensive line.
I think
it can't be the offensive line because it's the team. But then it's the wide receivers. But then
it's the offensive line. I mean, they way too much pressure comes in. It's the offensive line. Caleb thinks he can make the play, and he can't anymore because he's not in college. He'll figure that out eventually, but it's going to be ugly till that offensive line's fixed.
Yeah, we'll see. I still think it's mostly Caleb. Like, I haven't seen him have any command with that offense, and I've seen him just, like, completely miss throws.
Oh, he's missed a lot of bad
How do you just not hit any,
like, a lot of bad throws.
Like, he's just, like, missing throws. Like, straight up, like, he throws it to a guy who's open, nowhere near that dude. Like, just completely missing on throws. That's what I'm seeing with Caleb. That's not great.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen much command of the offense. And
he's making adjustments at the line, which is good to see for a young guy. Week 2, not many rookies are coming and doing that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually helping. Like, he's under a lot of – for a guy who's making adjustments at the line, he's under pressure a lot and looks very flustered.
Justin Fields.
So, like, is he just making the wrong adjustments at the line?
I don't.
And, and then throwing it into the right places, but nowhere near the dude?
Justin Fields had the issue with pressure too, and he has the escapability like no other quarterback, basically. So there's only a handful of guys at that level of athleticism.
Yeah, but I also would have never said Justin Fields is really making good adjustments at the line.
Well, I wouldn't have said that either. But at some point, the offensive line needs to just get bashed, and I think we're at that point. I still think Justin Fields is going to be fine, by the way. It's not.
Yeah, Fields will probably be fine in Pittsburgh. I don't know if I trust Caleb Williams. We'll see.
I don't trust Caleb yet.
Jaden McDaniels.
But I think he showed promise.
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, I don't like. Drake May, he would have won that game in overtime. I'm joking, but.
All right, I think we're done.
I'm joking.
You guys are now praising New England too much, and don't. I heard you talk about your best ball team, all right? We know what this happens, all right? Warning.
We are going to do best ball only content.
I heard that, all right? Trust me. I'm standing here angry. I was going to interrupt, like, you are not talking about your best ball teams right about now.
Oh,
I don't care how much Yoshi you got.
We won't talk about best ball tonight, and we won't talk about Andy Dalton, but I promise you we will talk about
Red Rifle. Sorry.
We definitely will talk about him this Saturday. We do have a bit of a programming note. We're going to go a bit earlier than normal if you guys have watched us live. Last week we had the most live viewers of all time. I was real excited. I was able to tamper my expectations a bit because I was so excited to see that many people tune in. So hopefully we can continue. Again, we haven't been really promoting it too much because I don't want to be that type of show. But a like and subscribe does go a long way. So if you could continue that trend a lot, we are producing the show for a lot of new time DFS players, and I do think the information is valuable for those individuals the most. So that's what I'm most proud of. Gov, Donnie, you have anything else you want to say to the people?
Just
That's it from me.
Remember, I was about to say peace out, everyone, but just remember, Saturday we're going to be going early, probably around 11 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock.
Eastern.
East Coast time. So we'll be about 3 hours early, but
That
we'll
is
still
10
be out
Central.
here.
8 West Coast.
No one gives a crap.
No
Peace out.
time.